Hi, my name's Sammie Veeler. I am a white transgender woman. I'm quite tall, wearing some platforms. Have blonde hair. I'm wearing a lavender vest. I have a bunch of tattoos, and I'm here with my friend Andy.
Hi, I'm Sammie's friend Andy. I'm a middle-aged white guy with a red and gray beard, salt and cayenne pepper, and I've got red Pumas on, and that's my thing today. Oh, okay. Do you have a mic too?
Sure do.
Hey, oh, we're in business.
Now we're in business. So by way of introduction, I am an artist based allegedly in Los Angeles. I'm a co-founder of newart.city, which is an artist-run virtual space that we founded in 2020. Basically, we have a tool that allows you to make a 3D multiplayer website without code. And last year, we formed a nonprofit research initiative called Virtual Access Lab, co-sponsored by Gray Area in San Francisco, where we research and develop tools for accessible digital culture. And that is how I met Andy.
I'm based in Chicago, and I'm a media artist, teaching artist, do a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm a principal sound designer and access lead at an immersive design boutique called Fair Worlds. And I went and got a fancy master's degree from Northwestern to kind of study sound for XR and these kind of experiences. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I identify as blind and Crip, and we have a lot to say. So I don't know what the time is, but we're getting close. You can send the Sandman out and we'll just take off.
Right back to sleep. So Andy and I met in, I think, 2021. New Art City was somewhat in its infancy. We were working with San Jose State University to begin using the tool for education. And in order to do that, we needed to meet these certain standards of accessibility. And so when San Jose State went to Mozilla Hubs and said, hey, can you meet this very low bar for accessibility? They said no. And we said, well, why wouldn't we want to do that? And so we brought in Andy to do an accessibility audit, and we formed an access panel of a bunch of different people across a lot of intersecting identities to help advise on how we should approach this in a holistic way from the bottom up, not the top down. And so from that, we implemented alt text, and we, as far as I know, are the only space of our kind that did that. And that it solves for one asymmetry of access, but we really saw that as a beginning, not the end. And so over time, Andy's been a really vital collaborator. And last year, we worked together on this commission that we're here to talk about called Unseen Sound. All right. So you can see here on the screen, this is a screenshot from Leonardo's Leonardo journal, which is where the research was published. And on the screen, it says, the book is closed forever, access denied. And the background is a blue screen, which is sort of both a reference to Derek Jarman's Blue, but also the blue screen of death, this kind of failure state of a computer. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you ended up working with New Art City on this project? Because it had a life before us.
Yes. So I was part of the Leonardo Crip Tech Incubator Fellowship. Yo, did I go away? Oh, sorry. 2022, 23, basically it was a cohort of disabled media artists working on some stuff, and they were paired with different residency hosts, right? And I worked with this mega international corporation called ThoughtWorks, and they had the ThoughtWorks Arts Division. And people from all over the world were helping me create. Originally, Unseen Sound was an AR sound installation design tool that was accessible for blind folks and whatever. About a year after and a couple of months before this major exhibition that was part of the fellowship, ThoughtWorks Arts, got their funding ditched and everybody got fired. And so all of the research and all the hard work that we had put into it was just, I don't know, put to bed, right? And then ThoughtWorks, being the capitalistic system that they are was like, we'd like to go into business with you and monetize this with you, which the whole point of the whole thing was that it was going to be open source and free for everyone to use, because as we've heard in the last thing, price point is, accessibility, right? Like, the amount that things cost is ridiculous and ableist and that sort of thing. So knowing what New Art City did and loving working with Sammie and stuff like that, I was just like, hey, can we get this together in a couple months and do something that's really, dope and, I don't know, up to our own creative and absurd standards. And so that's what we did.
And I think this really is an object lesson in the precarity of trusting a corporation to provide access. If a disabled person is invited to work with a major corporation and the only people they're talking to are marketing people, you are being scammed. And so there are lots of fantastic examples of this. You want to compare New Art City to Mozilla Hubs. We have one very important thing on them, that we still exist.
Yeah.
And this is a tool that was built for corporate metaverses. And once the venture capitalists got bored and moved on to generative AI, they tossed it in the trash. New Art City is artist-led infrastructure by artists for artists. And so the standard of stewardship that we aspire to is really, really different from a corporate marketing scheme. And so this project was so wonderful and generative because this was not a transaction, it was a collaboration. So, I mean, I guess one other thing I want to say about kind of the cutting edge of technology, people are trying to sell us a third web, which is a false teleology on its own. The tools of Web 1.0 are unequally distributed. So when we think about access, we're thinking about it in an intersectional sense. Your race, your geography, your technical literacy, the device that you own, these all, of course, obviously disability, these all intersect to advantage some people and disadvantage others. And so we're built for the web specifically because 2% of people on Earth have a VR headset. 50% of people on Earth access the internet primarily through a mobile device. This is universal design. We want to build for the 50%, not the 2%. And so New Art City is web-based for this reason. So going into, and then there are all these retinal assumptions about what VR can and should be. So this is the first non-visual virtual experience on New Art City. Usually these are kind of dazzling, three-dimensional PS2 aesthetic, chaotic worlds. Mm-hmm. And we really, Andy had this brilliant idea to kind of draw out this sensory disjunction through this distilled gesture of unseen sound. And go to the next slide.
It's so, I don't know, I'm blind, right? And I really feel like with XR and VR and all these things, my voice at the same time. Sorry. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I love the sound and the audio. Why can't I just have an audio experience that isn't an audio game where it's some barbarian killing people and that sort of thing? I just kind of want to walk around in sound, like as I would like sonic drift through the world, right? And so this is something that we knew we could do without having to spend $2,000 on some spatial audio suite or, use some archaic stuff in a whole bunch of like math and science that I don't understand, even though I know how the tech works and I know what it's supposed to do. So basically, I can't develop in Unity or Unreal, and I can't use any of the audio middleware that they employ because it's not accessible, right? The graphic user interface thing is, it doesn't work. It's not there for me, right? I just like to think that it doesn't exist. And so doing this kind of thing on my own was kind of impossible, and I would just rage quit everything, right? Just throw the computer across the room if I could. And so, it's like an audio experience. Let's say the HTC Vive has this thing where you put it on and you're underwater and there's whales and all this kind of stuff, right? Where you guys who are sighted can get this visual experience, this immersive thing. But where is that for me, right? Why does everything have to be so ocular centric? And then why does there even have to be like an objective, like some game objective or a puzzle or something like that? So I was going, so I really wanted to create something that was audio based, that wasn't notes on blindness. You guys know that? If you don't, good. Let's deplatform that mess. And so, you know, here we are, where this exists on the newart.city website, but it was also part of the Crip Tech exhibition, where I don't know what slide we're on here, but we'll talk about
some install shots.
There we go. So we'll talk about what that installation was like and how access, everything was intentional on so many levels, so that everybody that walked into that or rolled into that gallery could experience it.
So what we're seeing on the screen now is the install shot, where on the left you have a screen on the wall that has the blue screen I described before, and on the right there's a little table and a chair, and there's a little arcade controller and some headphones. And the fundamental gesture is a single person can sit down and put on the headphones, and then they can control the experience and hear the sound. And every time a sound is triggered, it plays a sonic description on the screen. And so everybody else who is witnessing is only seeing what is on the screen. And so this kind of distills the sensory disjunction between sound and vision into this kind of confusing gesture. And it's really meant to take that feeling of confusion of putting on this HTC headset, where it's like, great, it can do all of these cool things if I could only turn the damn thing on. And so there's the controller itself, which I designed with Andy's specifications, is very, very simple. You can only move on the X and Y axis. You have a button to return to 0, and you have a button to move to the next zone. But these buttons are not labeled, and the inputs and the outputs do not always match. And indeed, ain't that just the way?
It's something that I think a lot of people are used to having to adapt, where it's, what does this button do? No one's here to tell me what it is. I can't see the label. My whole life is just like, I don't know, I'm gonna do it until I find out what it is, right? So kind of sitting down at the table and messing around with this art piece, it's like, figure it out, mess around, figure it out. There were instructions, but you know, the gallery did a really bang up job of making that stuff legible and everything like that. So luckily, it's something that you could just sit down and mess around with. And so, you know, the idea of like conflicting accommodations and that sort of thing, I absolutely love. And so, you know, we're looking at the screen, and you know, whatever the captions say, it's the sound matches that energy, right? It's really weird. What does the caption say? Some of them are soft. Is that? I don't know. Whatever.
Read it from here.
We'll see. You know what some of those captions are. But it's taking like creative description and creative access. You know, everything, like I said, was very intentional. There's the monitor on the wall, and there's seating across from it, so you can, you know, sit down and rest, because none of us do that enough. And so the captions are there for, you know, people that can't hear it or choose not to hear what's going on, right? And they're just kind of like sitting there as a witness or an audience to whoever's, you know, playing through the sound. And so, you know, non-visual and blind folks have this cool audio experience, and then people can kind of, you know, we're so used to being stared at, right? You know, this time you can just like stare at the monitor and kind of like imagine what we're doing. What's on screen?
So that's, I don't love slides in general, so I have the install shots, and then I can show you the overture. So now I can see, I'm gonna go over there. You can see the sonic descriptions are stacking when you're hearing multiple sounds at once. So we're seeing putting it back in a bottle, a balloon deflates. You will encounter all kinds of different sounds. And now we have a close-up of the controller. You can see a little black plastic box with an arcade joystick sticking up out of the center. And then on either side, there are little arcade buttons. And then there are some headphones sitting on the table. And then this is a close-up shot of somebody's hands actually manipulating the controller. It's going to be kind of loud when I go back to the video, but I think it'd be nice to hear Andy's opening.
I could just say it. Away we go.
Does it want to play?
No.
It did it before.
No.
Welcome
There we go.
To Unseen Sound, an audio-only experience where anything can happen, but probably won't. As you wander through this non-visual world, you will encounter all kinds of different sounds. Some of them will be loud and some of them will be quiet. Some of them will be pleasant and some of them won't be pleasant. It all depends on where you go. There's no time limit in unseen sound, so get lost until you get bored.
This is called Pop Swamp. That's the area that we're in. So I'll navigate away from this video again. How do we make this? I think this is going back to these kind of, right. So when you install a VR piece in an art gallery, what you have to do is have a full-time attendant babysitting the machine all day, just to get it on even sighted folks. It's and this is one of these like human interfaces of access, because I mean, and I think this is like one of these kind of like, whoa. Yeah. Like I'm trying to remember what the actual phrase was. It's like access intimacy, right?
Yeah.
That we like humans often form this interface between disabled folks and the world. And so instead of having this be an attendant who's solving for the inaccessibility of a tool after the fact, we got to do this as collaborators. And so our process for making this was really interactive. Andy gave me some drawings with silver marker on a black sheet of paper of the basic arrangement of how it would work.
They looked like a D&D map.
God, I should have put those in. That was silly. Yeah, they really did. And he gave me a bunch of stems. And the most beautiful part of this is Andy trusted me to understand his vision and install it. And so it really felt like a true collaboration.
And it's something where I like to work within my means, because I want to know that something's going to work. I'm not going like above and beyond to use all this new tech that there's some kind of learning curve, right? Like there's so many ways to approach this, but you know, given my background with like old like 4-track cassettes and like analog gear, and you know, knowing, you know, at least with audio and then even with video, like what the limitations of this sort of like arcane or whatever sort of like functions of things and that sort of thing, like having that sort of background meant that I'm just going to make this so that I know that it works, right? You don't necessarily need to know how it works. You don't need to Wizard of Oz the back end in order to just get an idea that this is just like a spatial audio thing with a bunch of like weird sounds and stuff like that, right? And so knowing what the New Art City platform was like, I just told Sammie, like, we're gonna do this. And then a you know, blind person like myself can just do this autonomously, right? I don't need to go and get training necessarily. I don't need to go get a demo like the Apple Vision Pro, where since I've got something like called an eccentric fixation, where my left eye turns in, I couldn't even do the demo because it was eye tracking me, right? So it's something where you just sit down and it's like, you have the agency to go do this, stop. There's no bells or whistles and that sort of thing. And so being, you know, keeping it simple, and collaborating with Sammie meant, you know, have ownership over this, right? There's no, you know, we're not tied to a corporation. We're not like trying to toe the party line that like all of the technology coming up is going to be important and going to save everybody's life. We're just doing this fun art thing and kind of building up, showing what the newart.city can really do. And just, I don't know, doing something weird. You seem so much where it's like I said earlier, there's some kind of like audio game with a battle where it's like you don't even really trust blind people to just want to do weird stuff and have a good time. It's like when The Last of Us came out, Last of Us 2 or whatever, with all these amazing accessibility options. It's like I took 9 days trying to figure out how to do this, and then it's a bloody zombie game. I just want to, you know, bowl or like play Mario or knock a cactus over, right? So it just comes from this simple sort of state where it's like, I'm an artist. I'm a weirdo. Sammie's an artist. Sammie's a weirdo. And so we made something weird, and then it made it to the cover of a magazine, right? So that was, that was really kind of cute. But I really kind of feel like maybe, I don't know what the time is, but I don't know if you told enough about what New Art City is.
Sure. Right. Well, I mean, I think going off of what you just said also, that there's this common tick in big corporations where they're like, oh, we want a lot of pictures of marginalized people using our stuff, and we want to commission them to make content for our proprietary platform as a marketing maneuver. And we're really lucky to be an arts institution where we don't want to think about it that way, and it allows you to think in a much more creative way about what actually is desired. I find myself as an artist constantly doing this dance of marketing myself to somebody in order to kind of shoehorn something that I wanted to do already into something that is legible to them. And like the most beautiful part of this is that we really like understand each other.
And I think what's really important, you're talking about like the optics of like, I don't know, HTC, which we keep bringing up because we had this experience where, hey, we're going to do this thing, the Crip Tech Metaverse Access Lab, and we're going to fund it, and then we're going to take pictures, and we're going to give some artists a bunch of money to do something. But it's still an ableist piece of tech, an ableist company, because they're going and using disabled people to create something. But I personally couldn't do it. Some of the people in the cohort couldn't do it. And that's kind of like the angle here. It's like we talk about accessibility, and there's, it's something that's all on our mind, but it's like, what are we doing? Is creating access to something that is inherently ableist already, is that anti-ableism? Does that fight anything? It's like, cool, it gives us this, way of kind of catching up and, knowing what society is doing and that sort of thing, and understanding this crazy metaverse that everybody's talking about. But when we still kind of platform certain things like, the Quest or whatever, which, I can't even turn on or use. And when, there's all this talk about we're making this accessible for blind people or this group of disabled people, but not allowing us to turn it on. It's ridiculous. And that was mentioned, I think, by everybody in that last panel. And so what we really need to do is just, say, let's just do weird stuff for us, own this. And, if non-disabled people want to get in on it, cool. But, we really just want to see more people in whatever format, whatever art form, whatever medium, disabled folks, just make stuff for your own community. A lot of the times we don't have those tools, but make your own tools if you can. You live in community, disabled people, very strong. All the, disability solidarity is really strong, whether we know this or not. And build a community and build and create, and then just kind of show this industry that, a lot of the times they don't know what they're talking about, and we're not involved. I can't even count how many times I've had somebody say, hey, I made this for blind people. Why do you want to replace the cane with some weird haptic vibratory flashlight looking thing, right? It's like the cane has been around for millions of years, and I would trust it more than anything else, right? People just trying to, cure your disability through some kind of technology, and then that technology gets sold to Lockheed Martin, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to keep ranting.
Well, it's like technological solutions to structural problems, right? And the question I always ask, are we doing marketing or are we doing research? So if you're bringing a bunch of headsets to put on some blind folks, but there's no pathway for any features that actually make the tool accessible, then what the hell are we doing here? And so like when we did this collaboration, we did not have time-coded sonic descriptions or captioning on New Art City. And we built the damn feature for Andy with Andy while we were making the tool.
Yeah.
And I think that is really central to our approach. And I think it's in many ways a reaction to the ways that we've witnessed corporate platforms exploiting disabled people.
And corporate platforms, you know, or I shouldn't even say that, but just how people are approaching captions in, you know, XR, where there's still a lot of people are still kind of like following the FCC standards of how long a caption should be, what it should look like, and that sort of thing. And maybe not even including it as open captionings and stuff. So us just messing around and experimenting with it, it really shows that, you know, there shouldn't be standards, like especially with like art and XR and stuff. You know, there should be standards, but the standards don't need to be the golden rule, right? It's like,
it's more like strategies than rules, right? That like, I mean, you know, I've been so inspired by the way Andy approaches alt text, or like the fact that it was like, oh, thank God, I can use more than 3 sentences if I want to. Yeah. It's like, oh, my subjectivity is valuable. I don't need to seek this view from nowhere.
Right. And I love subjective description and this sort of like access intimacy and things for a community. Like, you know, it's like, who's the describer? Is it a little kid telling me what's going on? Because it's going to be much more interesting than some adult that thinks they know everything. Or you go to a museum and you have like a docent, somebody that knows all the work, describing it to you using a whole bunch of art speak. Or, you know, maybe it's this wonderful objective sort of description of a museum piece.
I think we're getting the cane.
We're getting the
we're getting the hook.
But the more describers, the more descriptions, I think the better. And that's not necessarily a conclusion, but that's the end. And I'll be demoing this piece today and tomorrow, so you can come and have fun with it. Thank you, friends.
Thank you so much.